A major injury coming out of last night's WWE Raw, a major angle involving the WWE Universal Championship, the reformation and the reconstruction of two teams, along with a preview of tonight's WWE SmackDown, an update on the draft, and more. This is PWR Tonight for Tuesday, January 9, 2018. Hello fans all over the world, and welcome to the return of the Pro Wrestling Report and the introduction of PWR Tonight. I'm Damian Nelson, coming to you here from the PWR studios, and thank you for joining us wherever you are all over the world. As you saw earlier today on Twitter, PWR Tonight is a new product from the Pro Wrestling Report, coming to you on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings. And this being the inaugural edition tonight, big news to discuss. Before we get to that, I want to remind all of you to subscribe to us right here, right now on YouTube. You can subscribe and get notified anytime new episodes of the show are made available here from the Pro Wrestling Report. And also engage with us via comments and your social feed here on YouTube. Subscribe to us here on YouTube, and also subscribe to us on Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio, the Pro Wrestling Report, available for free in podcast form. You can go ahead and subscribe and join us and listen to us on podcast form. PWR Tonight episodes also will be available on our podcast network on Blog Talk Radio, so you can take us with you to work in the morning if you aren't able to catch PWR Tonight on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. More information later in this episode, too, about the return of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime and Feedback Friday here to the television airwaves. I want to thank all of you for your patience and for joining us here at this time and on this night. So without further ado, let's get to this week's, or tonight's rather, in primetime mode, tonight's Raw Thoughts. Last night's Raw was a solid 3-hour effort, in my opinion, from WWE, and we saw some big things develop from that show, primarily being the big angle between Brock Lesnar, of course, the Universal Champion, Kane, and Braun Strowman. The three men will face each other in a triple threat match at the Royal Rumble for the WWE Universal Championship. But last night, Braun Strowman attacking both Brock Lesnar and Kane, bringing down one of the big old metal truss structures backstage at Raw on top of both men, rendering them unable to move. In fact, folks, Brock Lesnar would be stretchered into an ambulance and carted away from the arena. Now, from this reporter's perspective, that was a bit surprising given the fact that Kane was able to get up and walk away. Now, when you're looking at the three men, who is supposed to be the biggest and brightest and baddest? Obviously, that's Brock Lesnar, but perhaps ultimately it's Braun Strowman. But I was waiting, really waiting, when Brock was being put into the back of that ambulance for him to get up. Now, at the end, or just as they were closing the doors, he was saying, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. It's sort of like Matt Smith's Doctor Who, I think it was. But be that as it may, I really expected Brock to kick out of the ambulance, get out, and come out with some rage and some vengeance. And again, I probably would not have noticed as much if it were not just Brock Lesnar. If Kane had also taken the ride, if you will, then I think it would have been more sensible to me. Now, we've got a couple of more weeks, 2 weeks to be exact, before the Royal Rumble. The 25th anniversary of Raw is going to be in the way of that, and it's going to be tricky for them to continue storyline progression on that celebratory show. But be that as it may, this will probably all be summed up by that point, and we won't have any idea going into the Rumble who indeed will be the victor in that matchup, because now Kane has gotten the upper hand and Braun Strowman has gotten the upper hand in the last couple of weeks. You know, another interesting scenario on Raw this past Monday night, just last night actually, was the teaming, the pairing, the grouping of Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Jason Jordan. Now, a lot of people can laugh and snicker about Jason Jordan, but Jason Jordan, you know, he's growing on me. I'm liking him. I'm liking this sort of I'm better than I think I am, or than you think I am, attitude that he's been progressing and using, and lining himself up with what he thinks is the new Shield, I guess you can call it, the Champions Club, I think is what he called it last night. I'm liking this dynamic. I'm liking Seth's frustration with Jordan, and I'm liking Roman Reigns' sort of impartialness to Jason Jordan being involved, and Kurt Angle sort of being put in a weird spot as well. I did also like and want to commend the fans on the "Who's Your Daddy" chant from last night. Tonight on Raw with Jason Jordan. Now, the question I think we should ask ourselves is, does Jason Jordan equal the new Dean Ambrose for the next 6 to 9 months while Ambrose is out with injury? The Miz made his triumphant return. The endorsed Miz made his triumphant return to Raw last night as well. I was very surprised at how great a reaction The Miz got. I knew he was over, especially now, but I did not realize he was as over as he is over, and he was over in that segment last night. I love the fact that Elias introduced him as well, making it that much bigger of a moment. The Miz is a star, folks. I will say, as I've said before, The Miz is today's Ric Flair. He's not the new Ric Flair. He's today's Ric Flair. And what I mean by that, I've explained it on prior episodes. What I mean by that is he carries himself in a dignified fashion as the champ, even when he's not the champ, just like Ric Flair did back in the 80s and 90s. And I think if you can get away from the physical in-ring comparisons, I'm talking nothing bell to bell. I'm simply talking presentation. The Miz is today's Ric Flair. You know, another person who I think is tremendous talent and who I have endorsed here on these broadcasts is Finn Balor. However, I am having difficulty buying in to the Balor Club. What I mean by that is this: Gallows and Anderson have been treated in such a way that it's difficult to believe them as tough guys, bad guys, serious guys, Balor Club guys, I guess you can say, in the WWE as of late. They've got to be propelled in a fashion by the company. This is not a knock on their talents, by the way, because they're fantastic and this has a lot of potential. They've got to be propelled in such a way by the company that I can believe them as a, I guess, destructive force in wrestling and in WWE and on Raw with Finn Balor. I think this is going to be ultimately good for all three, specifically Finn Balor, who I like hearing more now about how he never lost and never got his rematch for the Universal Championship. The credentials are there, folks, but I need to see a little bit more from this team. It seems like they're sort of going back to the Balor Club of old, the club of old, if you will, and expecting those things to translate to the audience that's not necessarily familiar with same said club. They've got to find that mix there where things can be fresh, new, yet familiar. Fresh, new for the existing audience, for the new audience rather, and familiar for the existing audience for it to really take. I thought Raw last night was, again, one of its best 3-hour efforts in a long time, or at least in recent history. Now that the holidays are over, I think it's time to get serious again, and WWE did indeed get serious last night. All right, fans, here on PWR Tonight, let's go to a quick PWR draft update. And it's been months since we've updated you, but the scoring is complete. And it is my duty as a broadcast journalist to announce to you that David Hero and the Super Friends are in the lead, folks. Yes, indeed, David Hero and the Super Friends sitting with 2,835 points, and the Nelson family, the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment, with 2,525 points. It's a 310-point race, ladies and gentlemen, and we will get some major swings possibly at the Royal Rumble, because the Royal Rumble winners, of which, remember, there are 2 Rumbles now, the women's and the men's, get a 50-point, maybe 100-point, but they get a substantial bonus for winning that matchup, and that could take the Nelson family to the next level or keep the Super Friends well in the lead. As you know, we invited you this summer to participate in your own version of the PWR Fantasy Draft, and unfortunately, we did not keep up with your scoring as best as we should have. So here's what we're asking for from you. Get all your scores together. If you signed up and participated, get all your scores together and send us in an email update prior to the Royal Rumble to draft@pwrshow.com. Again, that's draft@pwrshow.com, and we will go ahead and continue that leaderboard with your scores for the PWR Fantasy Draft. All right, fans, let's get to tonight's hot news here on PWR Tonight. And as we mentioned earlier on, a big injury coming out of WWE Raw this past Monday night. Samoa Joe injuring his right foot, the extent of which is not yet known. Joe's going to go in and have an MRI to see how bad the damage is, but apparently during his matchup this past Monday, just last night, with Rhino, he tweaked his right foot a little bit and is going to get that checked out via MRI. And obviously, as you know, Joe this past Monday night as well introduced and announced himself as a participant in the Royal Rumble matchup. Hopefully that is not in jeopardy, yet we are only 2 weeks away from that. So best well wishes go out to Samoa Joe after that injury suffered this past Monday night. There's talk going around that another female superstar may be making her return to WWE, and that is Serena Deeb. You heard Kurt Angle on the phone this past Monday night with a female of unnamed origin, and the Deeb, who was last with WWE during the NXT Mae Young Classic last year. You may remember she was also part of the Straight Edge Society, I believe it was, with CM Punk in 2009, 2010-ish, is rumored to be returning to the company. Now, obviously, with the 30-woman Battle Royal, it's rumored that up to 5 to 7 of the names participating in that Rumble match will be surprise entrants and unexpected entrances. They've got to do this big. They've got to do this huge. It's the first women's Rumble ever. They are going to leave us with strong and tremendous memories about that matchup. This past Monday night, Raw had some struggles in achieving its desired viewership levels. As a matter of fact, it was down 3% in viewers from last Monday's show. And if you may remember, last Monday's show was the big return of John Cena, but it was also the New Year's Day show, the hangover show, if you will, from WWE Raw, which garnered 2.766 million viewers this past Monday night. And that's tonight's hot news. PWR Tonight continues with a SmackDown preview. Now, this show is being put out and brought to you during SmackDown, thus meaning we have not yet watched SmackDown. So we're bringing you a preview and what I hope to see and what we should be looking for on tonight's broadcast of SmackDown, which of course will feature the reaction of AJ Styles to the big announcement that he will face both Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble for the World Heavyweight Championship. The odds definitely stacked against Styles, but the underlying story between Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon as well is interesting. Rumors, of course, out there that Shane McMahon's going to be involved in a big-time WrestleMania matchup. Couldn't expect anything less. Is it going to be the return of Daniel Bryan to a WWE ring for one night only, back to New Orleans, where he won the World Heavyweight Championship in that same building, the Superdome? Sometimes, folks, it's right in front of us. We'll see what happens with that. The Hype Brothers will collide in the first round finals of the United States Championship Tournament. That will be Mojo Rawley versus Zack Ryder. This one could go either way, folks. I wouldn't have expected these two names to be the last two in the first round, but I like that they are. We'll see who comes out on top of that matchup. You got to think perhaps it's Mojo Rawley's time to win and advance in this tournament. Becky Lynch returns to the ring as well tonight on SmackDown. The best 2 hours of WWE you're going to get each and every week, because Raw's too long. NXT is only on the network, so I'm going to vote for SmackDown. I'm a SmackDown guy, if you will. That tonight, SmackDown. And we'll bring you, of course, our thoughts, my thoughts on SmackDown tomorrow, right here on PWR Tonight. Follow that? Tomorrow on PWR Tonight, I'll have tonight's SmackDown thoughts tomorrow on PWR Tonight. Folks, I want to remind you as well to check out the PWR Reaction podcast. Those podcasts available on our podcast network. You've got iTunes or whatever podcast subscription service you use, search for PWR, and you can get the Reaction podcast. Now, this Monday night's version was hosted by Meathead and Matthew Thomas, and they featured a look back to WCW in 1997. They basically pretend like then is now and give you a perspective on the week in WCW. And also, of course, on live pay-per-view nights from WWE, Reaction is live immediately following that pay-per-view with your phone calls. That's blogtalkradio.com/PWR. Again, that's blogtalkradio.com/PWR to get your fix and subscribe and sign up and become a member for free of the PWR Podcast Network. Folks, thanks for joining us here for the inaugural edition of PWR Tonight. Share your thoughts, share your feedback, share your comments right here on YouTube. Listen to us on podcast. And also be ready, get ready for the return of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time, which moves to Monday nights before Raw. Next Monday, less than 1 week's time, Prime Time back, David Hero back, Linda Kay back, and also Feedback Friday returns next Friday with a very, very special new co-host. Subscribe to us here on YouTube now. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on our socials. For the Pro Wrestling Report, I'm Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for joining us here for the first ever PWR Tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night.